Yeah. Good. No, no, I
Okay.
heard
Ah,
this
okay,
one for you.
okay,
You should
okay.
be a
I'm
full
fine.
citizen.
I'm fine.
Yeah, so kindly, Audrey, introduce us to yourself. Tell us your full name and your responsibility at the AFDB.
Okay, thank you very much. Modre Cynthia Yamajako. I work at the African Development Bank. I'm a principal climate finance officer at the African Development Bank, and I'm also coordinating the Africa Green Bank initiatives. What is the African Green Bank initiatives? This initiative is to work with government but also commercial banks to increase local access to climate finance. We all know that the needs for NDC's implementation in our 51 countries, 54 countries, but 51 countries need to implement their NDC reach 2.8 trillion by 2030. So it's a tremendous amount, and we can also see it as an opportunity. How do we translate this need for climate action into opportunity? We need projects on the ground. We need green projects on the ground. Those projects will not happen if we don't have also the appropriate type of fundings needed to implement them, so to fund them. So we need resources at scale, also labeled in domestic currency, to reduce also the cost of this funding. We need as well financial institutions ready with the appropriate capacity to support project developers in structuring their project and to make sure that they mainstream adaptation and mitigation in their project. So this is how we will deliver on our mandate, and this is how we will be able to build a sustainable development for Africa.
Yeah, you've told me that you're already working in 2 countries, or you're already establishing the network from 2 countries. How is that working? How is the response when you approach them and the engagement level? How are they responding to it?
So we have launched this initiative at last COP in Sharm el-Sheikh. Before the launch, what we did with the partnership of the Climate Investment Fund, we did a report to evaluate the potential of the Green Bank model in Africa. Is it a catalytic model for Africa? Is it useful for Africa? Because everything we need to do is to be customized for the African region. And we find out that this model is very critical to unlock private sector capital and also bring mobilize more resources for the climate action. So we launched this initiative at last COP, and we're already starting a pilot phase with 2 countries, Benin and also Côte d'Ivoire. We work with existing financial institutions, CDCB Benin and also BNI Côte d'Ivoire, so it accelerates the process. So we have already strong national institution who has a wide network of customers. So what we do, we provide them technical assistance to help them build their capacity on green investment. We also help them to have an appropriate strategy on their objective in the climate action in their country. So they will follow the Paris alignment objective, and they will also follow the country strategy, the NDCs and long-term strategy of the country. So it's really important that it's completely aligned. And we start with 2 countries, but the objective is to cover the whole continent. And Kenya, in the green fiscal policy, they have launched a draft. They have done a draft of a green fiscal policy, which is supposed to help mobilizing private sector and find solutions to fill the needs of fundings to complete Kenya NDCs. Kenya NDCs is 63 billion, is evaluated to 63 billion. How we're going to fund it? We have resources, but we need to channel those resources towards the climate ambition and the climate strategy of Kenya government. So we are discussing as well with Kenya. We are listening to Kenya because AFDB is supporting its regional member country in what they want for their future in terms of climate, especially, this in general, but here we are talking about climate. So we want as well to be available to support Kenya in this process of developing and building their own Kenya Green Investment Bank.
And I know one thing that mostly lacks is the follow-up to make sure that the money that has been released has been utilized in the projects that you are
exactly.
So how are you
to manage
to help
exactly
the institutions to manage that?
This is an excellent question. So how do we monitor that? So when we work with the institution to set up the facility they will have in-house, we make sure we build with them the investment guideline. We also support them to build a monitoring and reporting framework, a strong and data-based reporting. And we make sure So they will be able to, they will have strict guidelines also in investment, which will follow the strategy of the country, and they will be able, there is less misuse of the resources, because they will have clear investment guideline and clear also indication on the fact that they need to provide concessionality, to keep the concessionality of the funding they will have, to make sure that this concessionality is given to the project developer. So for example, if you have a project developer, let's say you are working in the manufacturing sector, and you come to your commercial banks, let's say Equity Bank is a Kenyan bank, and you already know very well your banker, because you have your own account since a couple of years there. They know that you are very reliable, and you come up with this project and you are looking for some funding. Your banker will come and look at your project and say, you know, we have in Equity Bank windows which can provide fundings for green component of your project. So please, maybe you can work a little bit more on your project to make sure that your project is sustainable to climate change, that your project also embedded inclusive aspects, so gender, so just transition depending on the sector. So it will be your interlocutor to strengthen and to make your project better, to mobilize resources they already have in their bank. And so you see that your banker will be your best advocate to make sure that your project is sustainable. And why is it very important? Because if we don't take into account the climate and the environment component when we do projects, your project will not sustain the impact of climate change. So maybe you will put a lot of money in building your manufacturing units, and maybe you haven't taken into account when you do the preparation of your project of the surrounding, and maybe your manufacturing can be subject to a flood and can be destroyed if a climate event occurs. So it means that it's really important that as project developer, entrepreneur, start to have this kind of habits to make sure that to work on the sustainability of the project. And having a project more sustainable, maybe at the beginning it will be a higher cost in terms of investment, but on the long run it will be more efficient, economically efficient and financially efficient, and to do that from the beginning instead of having something which will be destroyed in a couple of years.
And there's something that you've touched briefly, because I know my colleague also wants to talk to you about gender balance.
Exactly.
So how are you helping the institutions, the financial institutions that you're going to be working with, to make sure that at least, sometimes we talk so much about that,
exactly,
and then when it comes to the real implementation, unfortunately women are a bit disadvantaged because they don't own a lot of property. Banks ask for security through property. So how are you helping the institutions to balance that?
Exactly. So the institution, they have some targets. So they need to, in the project, they need to ensure that when the project is prepared, all the stakeholders, especially gender, are taking into account, are involved in those discussions. So first, it starts when you prepare a project. You make sure that the beneficiary, you have a large gender component in the beneficiary, but also that in the discussion, you also bring their voice to understand and to view what can they bring, because a sustainable project, a strong project, has to be inclusive. It's gender, it's youth, it has to be inclusive. If you want it sustainable, you have to consider all those elements. So it's at first it's at the project preparation, and after it's during the implementation. Even if you are, for example, if I take back this example of manufacturing, you make sure that in the employee you have women. You make sure that at every level also of responsibility, you make sure that you have a balance. You also make sure that when you report on the result and the operational result of your activity, that the beneficiaries is at least equally benefited to the gender, to the people. So there is many ways, and I think this is, by doing that, is not just to feel and to check some investment guidelines. No, it's to help you make your project better thought, and also better for our community. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
This one, last year at Sharm a lot of governments and organizations say that it was almost impossible to access the Green
Climate Fund.
So 1 year down the line, has everything changed or what needs to be done?
Okay, so the Green Climate Fund is a tremendous mechanism because we need a global provider of climate and environmental finance, and this is the role of the GCF. So his role is critical for the world. And the GCF is working to improve local access to climate finance. And is also working to make sure that they are investing in innovative solutions to help private sector to step in and to be more active in the climate action. So, for example, last board, the GCF has approved a project which is the Blue-Green Fund of Green Bank of Barbados. So it's a strong example that a GCF is really active in this role and supporting as well this Green Bank model. At the African Development Bank, we are also working with the government of Rwanda, with the Development Bank of Rwanda and also Fornewa, which is the Green Fund of Rwanda, to help them in the creation of the IREME, which is their National Green Investment Bank as well. And the GCF may be also a strong partner in this. So we need those green banks, they need the concessionality that GCF can provide, that the climate investment can provide, that the global environmental facility can provide. To be able to run those green banks, they need to have different layers of capital. They need the concessionality, and also they need the less, let's say, more commercial resources, because we need resources at scale. But that's why those vehicles, they are a critical role to play to make sure that those type of local vehicles, which will be the intermediaries to provide climate finance at a local level, are running and are in the capacity to do this climate action on the ground. Thank you very much.